Hello and welcome to a Monday Live right here on the early line and all across the SportsGrid network. A new week begins right here, right now. That includes sportsgrid.com/watch, where you can find your favorite destination to consume everything all across the grid. He is Donnie Rightside. I am Ben Stevens. A Monday, a new week starts right here, right now on the early line. A huge weekend around the world of sports. The first major championship in the world of golf comes to a close at Augusta National Golf Club, where we are seeing potentially the most dominant stretch of golf in a very long time. We'll go around the regular season finale weekend in the NBA as well. The playoff picture and postseason picture is now set with the play-in tournament beginning tomorrow, and Major League Baseball into its second and third week of this campaign in 2024. A lot to get to, Donnie Rightside, here in these 3 hours.
That should be a lot of fun to go over because there's huge ramifications from this weekend's NBA action, which now sets up the playoffs this week. We know exactly who's playing and where and when they're playing, so we can start to analyze that. But yesterday in golf, as you saw, sky is the limit for Scottie Scheffler, only 27 years old, and absolutely brilliant yesterday in the Masters tournament. A fun weekend all across the board, but it's our job, Ben, on Mondays to set the people up for the week and what they can anticipate, and we got them covered today.
We will do that for sure. It should be a historic night in Brooklyn, the WNBA draft, the coronation of Caitlin Clark going first overall to the Indiana Fever. But how is the rest of the first round going to go for the new stars of the W? We will look at that later on throughout this show as well. But as Donnie alluded to, dominance once again for Scottie Scheffler. Before we recap what happened at Augusta, we welcome in our SportsGrid radio audience. Opening hour of the opening day of a new week. It's live on a Monday right here on the early line on SportsGrid. He is Donnie Rightside. I am Ben Stevens. You are listening on Sirius XM, channel 159. All of our radio terrestrial affiliates now in the fold as well. Scottie Scheffler, victorious at Augusta, winning his second green jacket in the past 3 years. The pre-tournament favorite, DRS, with a 4-1 price, more than half the rest of the field. And we said, listen, it's a short number, but he's going to be there come Sunday. He wasn't just there. He was victorious. 11 under par. Scottie Scheffler's second major championship, his second win at Augusta in the last 3 years.
Filthy from that opening round of 66, and also did hit a little bit of trouble in round number 4, but never flinch. It felt like he lost the lead, and then with a blink of an eye, was right back in there. Steady all the way through that back nine. It was a lot of fun to watch here, and also it reminds us how dominant some of these golfers can be in an amazing field. Scottie Scheffler, wire to wire. Unbelievable stuff out there at Augusta.
Second best price was Rory McIlroy at pre-tournament. It was 10-1. Scottie Scheffler entered the 2024 Masters tournament at 4-1, plus 400, and he cashes. He now becomes the fourth youngest player to win 2 green jackets, only behind Tiger Woods, Jack Nicklaus, and Seve Ballesteros. Now we go to the regular season finale Sunday around the association. Drama across the league for seed lines and postseason spots in the final day of 82 games for all 30 clubs in the NBA. That included a 3-way race, DRS, for that top seed in the Western Conference. And the Oklahoma City Thunder get it done. And they scored a ton at home yesterday against the Mavericks team that was solidified virtually in that 5 spot. 135-86. Oklahoma City wins by nearly 50 points at home, and they cover as a 19-point home favorite. 5th consecutive victory for the Thunder to end out the regular season. DRS, this Oklahoma City team that showed some flashes last year with a very young and talented core was 34-1. Plus 3,400 to be the 1 seed in the Western Conference before the season got underway. Now they stand atop the West entering the playoffs.
Yeah, and we'll talk about a little bit later the MVP and who that should be. And SGA, we said for most of the year, boy, maybe he can be an MVP if OKC takes down that number 1 overall seed, which they did. And I'm going to say this about Sunday action in the NBA. We were set up for a monster Sunday. And a lot of these games fell flat. Why? As Ben just explained, a 19.5-point spread between OKC and Dallas. A lot of people like, you know what? We're happy with our seed. Let's sit this one out. And some of those teams like, we're not happy with our seed. We want to improve. So some thuds all the way around. But you can't doubt the Thunder here. 57 wins on the season and the number 1 overall seed. Love to see it, man.
a ton of lopsided efforts with a ton of very lofty spreads, but one game that did not hold true, despite a big spread, was inside Madison Square Garden. The New York Knicks gunning for the number 2 seed in the Eastern Conference behind the Boston Celtics. They go to OT against the Chicago Bulls, and the Knicks get a victory, 120-119. New York will be the 2 seed in the Eastern Conference, a 40-point performance out of Jalen Brunson. They do not cover as a 15-point home favorite in what was expected to be an easy win, but Tom Thibodeau wanted that 2 seed, and maybe it wasn't the best idea, but the Knicks are the 2 seed entering the postseason.
You can never fault a team for trying to get as high in the standings as you possibly can, but there is a 7 seed and an 8 seed right now masquerading as a number 2 and a number 3 seed that the New York Knicks are going to have to play right off the bat, whether it be the Miami Heat or the Philadelphia 76ers. I love the passion that the Knicks showed down the stretch here to grab that 2 seed, but at the end of the day, they probably were better off taking a loss there and hoping Milwaukee ended up in that 2 seed, to be honest.
Yeah. Play-in tournament in the Eastern Conference. The 7 versus 8 matchup is the Philadelphia 76ers, who have won 8 straight to end out the regular season, and the Miami Heat, who have made 3 of the previous 4 Eastern Conference finals. Now to the play-in conversation in the Western Conference. The Phoenix Suns win by 19 yesterday on the road. The T-Wolves, after the Thunder won, couldn't really battle for that number 1 seed. Phoenix wins by 19 as a 2-point underdog outright in the Twin Cities. They'll be the 6th seed because of the game that we saw after it. That was the Lakers and New Orleans. The Lakers on the road in the Big Easy went outright as a dog as well, 124-108. So here's how the play-in tournament looks in the Western Conference. Phoenix above, the 6th seed. New Orleans the 7, the Lakers the 8.
Yeah, no, and it's a big win there for Phoenix to get out of that play-in round. And also, what do you like to see? Bradley Beal, 36 points in a big effort against the Timberwolves on the road. This is the capabilities of the big 3 that's going to be so tempting to bet here on a playoff run.
Yes, it really will. We will set the landscape for everything you need to know around the NBA playoffs and what is ahead starting tomorrow night in the play-in tournament. Every seed line, every series that we have comes your way in just a little bit, but now some Major League Baseball from the weekend that was. What a great matchup it was this weekend in Baltimore between the Brewers and the Orioles. Baltimore gets the win yesterday, 6-4 at home against the Brew Crew, and Jackson Holliday records his first hit in the bigs.
Yeah, how about that? About time. Now you can start stacking those hits together because that relief is finally there that, oh no, I'm going to bat and go 0 for 35 here as one of the top prospects in baseball. We'll see where they go, but certainly impressive yesterday for the Orioles, now 9-6 on the season.
And the Guardians walk it off, stunning the Yankees, who plated 2 in the 10th, but Cleveland responds with 3 in the bottom of the inning in that extra frame to win 8-7. The Guardians avoid the sweep this weekend at home in the land. Now we go to Augusta. One final time to look at the 2024 Masters and Scottie Scheffler's dominance next.
People that bashed him will be eating their words this year.
Pretty heavily favored to be a first-round pick, minus 400 earlier this week. But that's not the surprise.
If you're drafting J.J. McCarthy in the first half of the first round, you clearly believe not only is he a starter, he's going to be your starter for years to come. But
a popular bet was under 3.5 wide receivers in the first round.
The tape doesn't lie, baby.
Only on SportsGrid.
Victor Hovland right now can probably hit it right where he's looking on the range. But the problem is when you get out to a golf course, especially like Augusta National, it's a big, big picture. You can see every shot in the world, but the targets are really, really small.
I feel like whoever we pick is going to win. Like, I feel like we have the power to choose the winner of this tournament.
I know. I'm surprised more guys haven't reached out.
And they might, and they probably will. Only on SportsGrid.
89-87, 0.6 seconds remaining. Big drama here in this game. Always frustrating when your Final Four parlay and bracket gets busted, but here we go. I'm done.
Look what he is now. He's on FanDuel, plus 120. almost even money to win the tournament. So you actually, if you did get him at plus 260, you got a pretty good, better investment than you had before. Just saying.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Scotty Scheffler dominant once again at Augusta National Golf Club. And we go live to Augusta, Georgia to recap everything we saw at the 2024 Masters on this Monday, live right here on the Early Line. Our colleague, Charlie Hulme, joins us here on the Early Line on this morning, the producer and co-host of The Smiley Show that you can see now here across the SportsGrid network each and every week. Charlie, we appreciate the time. Thank you for waking up bright and early on the Monday following Sunday at Augusta National to recap everything we saw.
Yeah, appreciate y'all having me, Ben and Donnie. Definitely some Sunday scaries yesterday. We have to kind of bid farewell to the golf event of the year, but glad to be here recapping it with you two.
Charlie was on the grounds over the weekend to take in everything we saw at the 2024 Masters. And first and foremost, what we saw was dominance once again from a guy on a heater we have not seen in the golf world in quite some time. Scotty Scheffler, his second green jacket in the past 3 years. The Players' Champ this year, the winner at the Arnold Palmer Invitational. He makes it 3 championships in his last 4 PGA Tour events, but none bigger, of course, than his second green jacket. 11 under par. He paces the field, Charlie, by 4 shots. How do you describe the level of play we are seeing out of Scotty Scheffler at this moment?
I mean, Scotty Scheffler is the closest thing that we've seen to prime Tiger in terms of ball striking stats since Tiger's era of dominance. If you go back to last year, his stats were right there with Tiger and only won twice and really should have won about 6 times because the putting was so bad. He switches to that TaylorMade Spider putter before the Arnold Palmer Invitational, wins the following week at the Players Championship. Then 2 weeks later goes to the Houston Open and misses a 5-foot birdie that would have got him into a playoff and could have won there. We really could be sitting here today talking about four wins and 4 straight starts for Scotty Scheffler. I just think, this is really going to – ironically, the thing that could stop Scotty is his first child is due at the end of this month at the Charles Schwab, I believe, is the timing of that due date. So that might be the only thing that slows Scotty down in the near future. But he is just on another level right now, and it's going to be tough to catch.
Charlie, talk about this weekend, because as much as we love watching the golfers, it's a spectacle just watching the golf course at Augusta. It's absolutely beautiful in 4K. It's so much fun to look through, but I really enjoyed Friday. I love a test of golf similar to the U.S. Open, but it wasn't so much the course itself. It was the windy conditions. Talk about how some of these guys really played through that Friday just to try to set themselves up for the weekend.
I mean, Donnie, I cannot tell you how impressive some of the rounds the leaders put together on Friday were. I mean, it was silly, some of the windy conditions. We're looking at like sustained winds in the 25-mile-per-hour range, gusts higher than that. And this course, I think the thing that happened there was Augusta National was expecting more rain to come in than did. We thought we were going to have a big delay on Thursday. We only got like 0.6 of an inch. So as a result, they did not put as much water on the course as they normally would have. Then the wind comes in and bakes the thing out. This is as close as we've seen this course to a U.S. Open test, maybe ever. So, I mean, and then you take that all through the weekend where even yesterday, it's like the greens were getting crispy and guys were having trouble holding them. Some of the pin locations and the length of the course, it was a tough test, and that was reflected in the scoring. And I think that's why it's so amazing to see the way Scotty separated himself, where he went out and shot, 66, 72, 71, 68 on that golf course. It's just, it's unbelievable.
It got tight early on Sunday. Colin Morikawa made a charge. We had Max Homa tied for the lead, and Ludwig Oberg, who is an absolute stud in his first major championship, the only other golfer outside of Scottie Scheffler to finish at 5 under or better. He was 7 under par for his first ever major. But then you see Scottie Scheffler, Charlie, at 11 under. And Donnie and I talked about this all week leading up to the 2024 Masters. He was 4-1 pre-tournament. Second best number was Rory McIlroy at 10-1. It's not often in life you set expectation for something and that player or person or event even exceeds expectation, but that is what Scottie Scheffler is doing at this moment. We have heard a lot of his press clippings and a lot of his sound bites during press conferences about his mentality and how he approaches life and the game of golf. What can you say about Scotty's mentality that allows him to exceed expectation even when so much is thought of him?
I think that's the interesting thing about Scottie Scheffler, where people are having trouble wrapping their head around who he is. He plays like Tiger, but nothing about him is like Tiger. You could even extend this conversation and talk about, whether this result, what impact it has on interest in the game of golf. Because I think a lot of people find Scotty boring. Now, I don't find Scotty boring because I'm a golf nerd. And when a guy goes out and finds a way to score, no matter what part of his game is off every single time, that to me is really, really cool to watch. I just think Scotty is a really centered guy, a really grounded guy. There was one answer he gave in the press conference last night where he's like, I'm just trying to get the trophy and the jacket on and get out of here and get home to my wife. I think it's really, it says a lot about him where he has, this sort of even keel, great support system around him. His caddy, Ted Scott, is phenomenal. But there's also that dog in him, to use a common turn of phrase. I mean, we talked to guys on tour, Sam Burns, who talk about ping pong games where he cannot stand to lose anything. And we really saw that, in the putting struggles where we saw the frustration boil over and come out. So it's this odd combination of a guy who really knows who he is and has an identity off the course and sort of a centered, calm mentality. But when you get him out there, he wants to step on your throat. He wants to beat everybody in that field. And he wants to do it badly. And I think that's the recipe for success for Scotty right now.
Couple green jackets here now, Charlie, for Scotty. But let's take another guy who has multiple green jackets. That's Tiger Woods. He comes out and makes the cut here, but struggled over the weekend. But one thing that you can look forward to also is we might have been expecting that withdrawal coming in round number 3 because it was clear he was hobbling around the golf course. Gutted it out. What's the future for Tiger Woods, and what can we anticipate, Charlie, in your mind?
Yeah, man, it was a tough watch at times this week. I think everybody in the field played really slow during those windy conditions because you're trying to hit the right shots. But Tiger was playing at an especially deliberate pace, because he's working with the body and the conditions. I think that it's going to be tough for Tiger to win another event, let alone a major. Given what we've seen on the physical side from him. I think it could happen. If anything, I thought it was interesting the way he made the cut where, he kind of has that experience playing in all sorts of conditions and can find a way to score and goes out and does it and makes the cut where other guys they don't have that talent set or they don't have the ability to do it in a major. But I wonder, a lot of things are going to have to fall into place for Tiger to go out and win again. It's understandable. It's not only the physical too. It's like, here's a place where, he's losing some of the technical edges that he had. Like I saw a lot of putts left short the last couple of days, a couple wedges that were a little loose. That's not the Tiger we know. And I think that has the most to do with where he's at physically. And that's just his reality. And I think he knows it.
Yep, there are the good, and then there is the bad as well. 15 over on the weekend, but 1 over after Thursday and Friday to make his 24th consecutive cut. And as both Charlie and Donnie alluded to, just good to finish all 4 rounds at a major championship. So quickly here, Charlie, only 1 minute left in this segment. We will look at the odds for Scottie Scheffler in the final 3 majors of this calendar year in 2024. And much like he entered the Masters, very short prices. What do you expect out of Scottie Scheffler to end out this year on the PGA Tour?
I'm gonna detour you a little bit here. Ludwig Åberg, 18-1 at the PGA. Scotty, new dad, still adjusting the sleep schedule. Love Ludwig at Valhalla. That's a place where Rory won. A lot of similarities to Rory and Ludwig's game. I love Ludwig there. Now, Scotty's going to win the U.S. Open or the Open, maybe both, but PGA, look out for Ludwig. He's coming.
Charlie, that is sensational stuff. An early value play on Ludwig Åberg, who was walking around Augusta like you might walk around on a Sunday round with your friends, just enjoying the moment, but an absolute killer as well. Charlie Hulme joining us here on this Monday on the early line. Charlie, thanks so much. Keep bringing the heat on the Smiley Show as well.
Love it. Appreciate y'all having me. Enjoy the day.
Safe travels back from Augusta as well. We go around the association, looking at the final weekend of the NBA regular season. Up next.
People that bashed him will be eating their words this year.
Pretty heavily favored to be a first-round pick, minus 400 earlier this week. But that's not the surprise.
If you're drafting J.J. McCarthy in the first half of the first round, you clearly believe not only is he a starter, he's going to be your starter for years to come. But
a popular bet was under 3.5 wide receivers in the first round.
The tape doesn't lie, baby.
Only on SportsGrid.
Victor Hovland right now can probably hit it right where he's looking on the range. But the problem is when you get out to a golf course, especially like Augusta National, it's a big, big picture. You can see every shot in the world, but the targets are really, really small.
I feel like whoever we pick is going to win. Like, I feel like we have the power to choose the winner of this tournament.
I know. I'm surprised more guys haven't reached out.
And they might, and they probably will. Only on SportsGrid.
89-87, 0.6 seconds remaining. Big drama here in this game. Always frustrating when your Final Four parlay and bracket gets busted, but here we go. I'm done.
Look what he is now. He's on FanDuel, plus 120. Almost even money to win the tournament. So you actually, if you did get him at plus 260, you got a pretty good, better investment than you had before. Just saying.
Sports Rage Late Night. Only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
where to even begin around the association. The regular season finale on a Sunday. No games on Saturday. 15 games on Sunday. All 30 clubs in the NBA in action in their final game of the NBA regular season. With so much left to determine, but we saw motivation be quantified in very large spreads across the board. If you had something at stake, if you had a seed line on the line, it was baked into the number. So let's start maybe at the top of the Western Conference in the three-way race for that number one overall seed. It was pretty simple, though, entering the final day of the regular season. If the Thunder won, they would be a 1 seed. The Thunder needed to lose, and Minnesota needed to win for the T-Wolves to be the 1 seed. Denver needed both to lose and the Nuggets to win after the Nuggets lost, surprisingly, as a 13-point road favorite on Friday night in San Antonio. But the Thunder did not lose. In fact, they won by nearly 50 points. 135-86. Oklahoma City triumphant over a Dallas Mavericks team that had already solidified its place in an opening round series against the LA Clippers. OKC, 19-point favorite, and they easily cover the number. The Thunder scored 82 DRS in the opening half.
Yeah, and it was a blowout right from the get-go. And granted, I wasn't paying all that much attention until I saw that final score where I went back and said, what actually was that line? And because most people say, like, you know what, we don't think Dallas is going to play. But how many people actually lined up and said, you know, I'm going to lay the 20 points in that basketball game, knowing that all you needed was a victory. They didn't have to win by 20 points for some tie-breaking formula where you knew they would press the needle down. They absolutely hammered Dallas, but they should have. That was a backup group for Dallas. But also, let's shift the focus back on OKC. You earned the right for those victories here where you're playing for something and somebody else is not here. So the fact that the OKC was sitting back saying to themselves, well, look, nobody's going to feel bad for us if we got a full blast effort from the Mavericks and lost this game. So they earned that layup win against the Mavericks because the Mavericks weren't fighting for that top seed, obviously, but they were. So kudos to them for having an unbelievable regular season. And this is something that even, Ben, when we were previewing on Friday, going, man, there's no way the Denver Nuggets are going to lose that game to the Spurs. They're going to be that number 1 seed overall. And that was a shocking development when they lost that game, not only not covering the spread, but lost it outright. So I love the fact that OKC gets that top seed because I just wanted – it's not fair to say, like, I want Denver to earn it because that's not a fair picture here. I just think it's more intriguing in the West if Denver didn't have home court advantage, which they don't. So it's going to be a great run in the West now.
In both OKC and Denver, 33-8 at home this year. That is the second best home record in the NBA, only behind the Boston Celtics. The Thunder end the regular season on a 5-game win streak, covering in their last 4. They were struggling by Oklahoma City standards this season, really into those final 5 games, the final week and a half of this NBA regular season. Because of the absence of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, he is back, and some are partitioning for SGA to be the NBA MVP in the regular season. And it was surprising, DRS, to see the Nuggets lose on Friday night in San Antonio. When we were breaking down that game, Denver, 13-point road favorite against the Spurs. They handled their business earlier in the week at home against the Minnesota Timberwolves, all but locking up, it seemed, the right to be the number 1 seed in the Western Conference. You and I were breaking down that game. We looked at the first half number. That's probably the way to play Denver. They covered as an 8.5-point first half favorite on Friday. Why do I know that? I bet the Nuggets. They were up by 11 to only lose the game by 1 in San Antonio, opening up the door for Oklahoma City to be the number 1 seed at the end of this regular season. As we shared earlier, shout out to our producer Joe Frieso for keeping a track of these odds. 34-1 for the Thunder to be the 1 seed in the Western Conference before the 2023-24 NBA regular season got started. You know, by the way, Denver was victorious yesterday in the regular season finale in Memphis, winning by 15 as a 13-point road favorite against the Grizz. Nikola Jokic, 15 points, 15 boards. Denver will be the 2 seed in the Western Conference playoffs.
Yeah, and that's good. I like that because it adds intrigue here. You're not just going to give Denver that top seed play in elevation where they've been absolutely filthy at home, but now you see the Oklahoma City Thunder. This is one of the question marks where you try to rise to the occasion because 3 weeks ago, if you would have said who's going to win this Western Conference here, or should I say who's going to be the top seed in the Western Conference, it was Denver. You knew the cream would eventually rise to the top, but the fact of the matter is, again, that they lost to the Spurs in that spot where they were so heavily favored. That was a shocker, but also credit OKC for coming down the stretch and playing great basketball. 5 straight wins to end the regular season. That's what did it for them. I like where they're going at this point, but also we know this isn't detrimental to Denver's run to the playoffs because they don't have home court advantage all throughout. Right. Oh, there's no way they can win this game. They are supremely talented. They cut down the Nets last year. They were the world champions. So they're going to have a chip on their shoulders now because most people might be saying, oh, look at that last year, an easy run through. Won't be that easy in the Western Conference. They'll have to earn it, but I'm here for it. I like the setup here for the Denver Nuggets with legitimate chance to repeat, even though, Ben, they didn't get that top overall seed.
No part of the Western Conference playoff bracket could be described as easy. Not the path for Oklahoma City as the 1 seed. Certainly not the path for the Denver Nuggets or the Minnesota Timberwolves, who lose yesterday at home, booked as a short favorite, laying 2 against the Phoenix Suns. The Suns win 3 in a row to end out the regular season to claim the 6th seed and avoid the play-in tournament out west. Because of the win and a Lakers victory over the Pelicans, the Pels fall into the 7th spot. They'll be in a play-in tournament matchup against the LA Lakers tomorrow night to start off the play-in tournament in the Western Conference. But we focus on Phoenix just momentarily here. Bradley Beal, game-high 36 points. Devin Booker pours in 23. Kevin Durant only adds 15, but 74 of the 125 scored yesterday by the Suns in the Twin Cities come from the Big Three. Are we starting to believe in Phoenix once again?
Yeah, because you add to that big 3, too, and it's when you had Grayson Allen, who was 8 of 11 from the floor yesterday, including 3 for 3 from three-point range, chip in with 20 points. They are dangerous. This is a better version of the Phoenix Suns coming into the playoffs this year being healthy than what we saw last year, was Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. If they don't combine for 85 points every single night, there was no chance that the Phoenix Suns would be able to win multiple series. So now you take a look at this year. This is what we asked for, Ben, to be honest. If you just go back and rewind to game number 1, forget about these 3 guys playing together all season long. All you wanted was the big 3 to be healthy for game number 1 of the playoffs, and they are. So are you willing to back the Phoenix Suns in that environment here? And it's funny because it seems like either way I go, I'm fading the Suns, they dominate. Oh, I'm going to back the Suns. What the hell kind of loss was that on the previous game, right? That's the way it's been feeling for us this year. But I like the way they ended the season. And also, they got a full punch here from Minnesota. That was a road game for Phoenix going up against Minnesota. That's a great victory here. So something to build on. And again, 15 out of Durant, but 36 out of Beal. As long as one of those big 3 can really step up and hit that gas pedal like Beal did, they're going to be a dangerous out no matter where they go. But the question always lies, are we just going to wait to see what they can do in round number 1? Are we going to wait to see what they do in round number 2? When is the right time to get on the Suns to try to catch them at a good price point? Because once they start to win and look good, obviously we know that number is going to plummet.
So right now, because of the win yesterday, the Suns win in Minnesota, a place they will need to win at least a few times come the opening round of the playoffs. That's the 3-6 matchup in the Western Conference. And despite not having home court advantage, the Suns will be a slight favorite, minus 120 in that series outright price. The only other opening round set that we know at this moment, for the 3rd time in the last 5 NBA seasons, it's the Dallas Mavericks and the LA Clippers. Home floor advantage for the Clips inside Crypto.com Arena. Again, same series outright number at this juncture, minus 120 for Los Angeles. But the Mavericks playing great basketball despite a big loss to the Thunder yesterday. Not at full strength, barely playing anybody to end out the regular season. Interesting game as well, DRS. A couple of the matchups that we saw to end the regular season are those playoff or play-in matchups that we will have to begin the postseason. The Lakers go into New Orleans. A huge game for the Pelicans in the Big Easy. And the Lakers win outright as a 3-point dog by 16. 124-108. The Lakers won 11 of their final 14 games. Total of 231 goes over by a point yesterday. The Lakers over in 10 of their final 14 regular season games. And if you're looking for a postseason picture, LeBron, 28 points, 17 assists, 11 boards. Anthony Davis, 30 points, 11 rebounds in New Orleans. As the Lakers get a huge win over the Pelicans, that will be the 7-8 matchup in the play-in tournament to start the play-in tourney tomorrow night.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it as well. You like that rematch right back off it here. And that's a monster win by the Lakers because we knew they weren't going to get into the top 6, but you want to be in that 7-8 seed. So if you do lose that matchup here, you then get home court advantage in the final playing game, which you will have on your home court, which is key. But also, Anthony Davis played more games this year, I believe, than any other point in his career. Now, the questions come up late in that game. He gets injured a little bit, but he vowed that no matter what, he's going to be there for game number 1 of the playoffs, which is key. But you sort of rest on your laurels. It's LeBron James, it's Anthony Davis, it's a Pelicans team that's so talented, but just haven't shown us exactly the keys to victory here. Let's see if they can do that in that playoff game. But I don't think too many people are going to be doubting the Los Angeles Lakers if they once again go into New Orleans and handle themselves with a victory.
The Lakers now have the best price of the 4 Western Conference play-in tournament teams to see the playoffs at minus 550. The Lakers a very slight favorite on the road tomorrow in New Orleans in that first play-in tournament game. Here are the odds to win the West at the end of the regular season. We'll have plenty more to preview the postseason later on in this show. But the Nuggets, despite being the 2 seed, are still the short favorites, nearly $5 in front of the rest of the field, plus 135. OKC and LA, 6-1, tied for the second best price. Now to the Eastern Conference next.
People that bashed him will be eating their words this year.
Pretty heavily favored to be a first-round pick, minus 400 earlier this week. But that's not the surprise.
If you're drafting J.J. McCarthy in the first half of the first round, you clearly believe not only is he a starter, he's going to be your starter for years to come. But
a popular bet was under 3.5 wide receivers in the first round.
The tape doesn't lie, baby.
Only on SportsGrid.
Victor Hovland right now can probably hit it right where he's looking on the range. But the problem is when you get out to a golf course, especially like Augusta National, it's a big picture. You can see every shot in the world, but the targets are really small.
I feel like whoever we pick is going to win. Like, I feel like we have the power to choose the winner of this tournament.
I know. I'm surprised more guys haven't reached out.
And they might, and they probably will. Only on SportsGrid.
89-87, 0.6 seconds remaining. Big drama here in this game. Always frustrating when your Final Four parlay and bracket gets busted, but here we go. I'm done.
Look what he is now. He's on FanDuel, plus 120. Almost even money to win the tournament. So you actually, if you did get him at plus 260, you got a pretty good, better investment than you had before. Just saying.
Sports Rage Late Night. Only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
So we showed you in our previous segment how the West was won, or at least the structure of the Western Conference postseason. Now the same conversation out East. So much to iron out from really seed line 2 through 8. The only thing we knew for sure entering the regular season finale on Sunday, the Boston Celtics were going to be the number 1 seed, having clinched the NBA's best record nearly a week and a half ago. And the 9-10 matchup in the Eastern Conference play-in tournament would be in Chicago this week between the Bulls and the Hawks. But everything else, very up for grabs, including the number 2 seed in the Eastern Conference. And the New York Knicks, based on that motivation, being a part of the handicap and at least baked into the spread, 15-point home favorite yesterday, DRS, in their regular season home finale against the Chicago Bulls. As we saw in many other spots, if you were booked as a double-digit favorite, there was a reason. Not necessarily the case for the Knickerbockers. They do win outright by 1 in overtime, 120-119 over Chicago. The Bulls do cover as a 15-point dog. The Knicks have won 5 straight to round out the regular season. No cover in their last 2, though, as a double-digit favorite. They win in OT. They go full out for that number 2 seed. But was it the wise choice by Tom Thibodeau and company to be the 2 seed in the Eastern Conference?
It wasn't the wise choice. But then again, you never know how things break anyway as they set up towards the playoffs and which teams you want to play or not. Usually the theory is just get as high as you can in the standings because that usually will be beneficial to you throughout your playoff run. But as we said, the Miami Heat and the Philadelphia 76ers aren't 7-8 seeds. They're 2-3 seeds here that you're going to line up and play. But I like the gumption where the Knicks said, you know what, we want this game. It's at home. We're going to take this game. We're not going to lay down and lose momentum into the playoffs because we were trying to duck an opponent. And as it turns out, if you duck that opponent, then you lose round number 1. What were you actually trying to do anyway? So I don't mind what the Knicks actually did, but I think most people watching that scenario play out going like, hey, New York, you sure you want to win this basketball game because the path might be easier as a 3 seed than a 2 seed? Again, I say this where I don't have any issue with that. Anytime you want to take a win and improve your standings, that's what you're supposed to do, even though it looks like it may be detrimental with that victory yesterday by 1 point.
And we'll show you why it's detrimental in just a little bit. But when you have the Sixers, who have won 8 straight on the longest active win streak around the association to end out the regular season, now that Joel Embiid is back into the fold, he didn't even play yesterday for Philly. Neither did Tyrese Maxey against the Brooklyn Nets, and they still won by 21 points. And on the other side of that 7-8 matchup is the Miami Heat, who have been to the Eastern Conference Finals and reach a different level come the postseason in 3 of the past 4 years. It is not necessarily the best recipe. And the Knicks will be shorthanded. No Julius Randle for the playoffs either. I'll ask you the question in just a little bit, DRS, about that potential 2-7 matchup in the Eastern Conference postseason. But that's why it was a little bit interesting to go full bore for that number 2 seed. Donnie is right. You try to win a game. It's professional sports. You try to win a game to improve your seed line, but it is about matchups by the time you reach the postseason. Really, 82 games, be damned. It's about how your playoff outlook now looks. And the reason the Knicks could take the 2 seed is because the Bucks, without Giannis and without a ton of care on the road yesterday in Orlando, do go down. The Magic entered having dropped 4 of their previous 5 games. They get a win at home, 113-88, covering as a 5.5-point home favorite. They wrap up the best cover percentage and the best ATS record to end out the regular season in the NBA. And a victory I personally needed, DRS. I needed the Magic to win, to claim the Southeast Division. They did that.
Had a great week last week on Best Bets right here on the show, and that Friday pick here was not for the Philadelphia 76ers to dismantle the Magic, but just for a total to go over, which it did. Now, 113.88 on Sunday. This was interesting to me because you take a look at the box score and say, well, who came to play here for Milwaukee? Because that final score indicates that Milwaukee was like, dude, we don't want anything to do with that number 2 seed. We're going to bench all our starters.
Yeah.
It wasn't the case. Porter, Middleton, Lopez, Beverly, and Lillard started that game. So basically, the main guy you were without, of course, it was still Giannis. But note, I actually saw that line before the game, and it sort of like got to me a little bit because the Orlando Magic in this game had been playing well down the stretch. And let's just say the closing number was 6.5 to 7.5. I said, oh, that indicates Milwaukee's not trying and won't start their players. But they did here. And then you saw the ramification saying, well, the Sixers are hoping that the Magic would lose. And then all of a sudden, like, did these teams get on the phone and pick it up? Hey, by the way, look, don't want you to get risk of injury, but we're going to smoke Milwaukee today. So Joel Embiid, even though this is a monster game for you to move up out of the play-in rounds, we're going to sit you out. And the Sixers still handled their business, and rightfully so, in that game. But this was the one that I looked forward to and said, you know what? I think Milwaukee has enough left in the tank to beat a limping Orlando team. But yet they got absolutely shelled in their own building. So when you talk about a team going into the playoffs, the Milwaukee Bucks, I can't remember a team that's was going to be either 2 or 3 seed coming in with this many down vibes at this point. Because it'd been one thing, Ben, 113, 112, hey, man, we have Giannis. It's going to be a completely different scenario. They got absolutely obliterated in the fourth quarter, got crushed. Couldn't figure that one out.
Yeah, the Bucks, by the way, end the year as the 4th worst cover team around the NBA, just a cover percentage of 43.2%. But to Donnie's point, to end out the regular season with Giannis for some, of course, without for the final 3 games of this regular season, 46-25 on March 24th. They end the year 49-33. They lose 8 of their final 11 games, and because of the loss, they fall to the 3 seed. There was a lot of motivation for how things would organize themselves 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Indiana needed to win at home yesterday against the Atlanta Hawks. The Pacers do that. 157-115. 157-115. Indiana scored 49 points in the opening quarter, had 86 at the break. The Pacers cover as a 14-point favorite. A total of 240 goes over. But the reason I bring this up, Indiana will be the 6th seed in the Eastern Conference. Their opening round matchup is against the Bucks. The Pacers handled Milwaukee throughout the regular season. They won 4 of 5 games in the regular season and the the in-season tournament. That included the in-season tournament semifinal matchup way back on that opening Friday night in December out in Las Vegas, or on that Thursday night in December. Regardless, in the IST semi, Indiana pasted Milwaukee. The Pacers will not be afraid of playing the Bucks even without home floor advantage.
And this is all, like, sometimes when we talk about, like, we joke, like, sports are scripted sometimes. Tell me, like, these spreads were so wild in the final game. And again, Atlanta didn't need that victory. We knew that coming in, which led you to believe that Trae Young is going to play, 8 minutes just to get warmed up, and DeJounte Murray might play the first quarter and sit. Trae Young played 32 minutes. DeJounte Murray played 31 minutes. They got beat 157-115. Like, some of these scores, and the same way I just talked about the Orlando game, they aren't adding up here because stars are playing 30-plus minutes and you're getting torched. But the line didn't indicate that, because if you told me before this game, we know Atlanta doesn't need the game, but they're going to play their guys out there, and their 2 superstar guys at least 30 minutes plus, I'd say, okay, Indiana needs the victory. They don't need an actually 157-115 victory, and they hammered them. Now, the question that always comes up here, Ben, right, with the Pacers, how does that regular season 157-point offense translate into the playoffs when it turns into more of a half-court game here? That's the wonder, but you brought up a good point here. It's not a great matchup for Milwaukee, and also, if you're taking a look at a round number 1 matchup, if Giannis isn't healthy, which means he probably doesn't want to go at a super fast tempo and pace up and down the court, what do the Indiana Pacers try to do at that point here? I'm interested in this series. It's a really good one, because why? I want to see if this Pacers offense translates here, Ben, into the playoffs, and we'll find out right away.
And the pace was slowing a little bit for the Pacers middle of February after the All-Star break through the end of March. But not to end out the regular season. Indiana over in 5 straight to end out the regular season, and 6 of its last 7. So you saw the 4-5 matchup. Cleveland has home floor advantage against the Orlando Magic despite losing to the Charlotte Hornets in their regular season finale. So I saw this line early in the day, 13.5 points in favor of Cleveland, trying to position themselves to keep home court advantage in the opening round of the postseason. No Donovan Mitchell, no Darius Garland. So I went back. I was like, all right, maybe the line adjusted drastically in the final 15 minutes prior to tip. No, it closed at 13.5 in favor of the Cavaliers, and the Hornets won by double digits outright on the road. That was interesting. Cleveland 5-9 in its final 14 games to end out the regular season. And we showed you Philadelphia victorious by 21, despite no Joel Embiid and no Tyrese Maxey. The Sixers win 8 straight to end out the regular season. And the Heat win by 15 as a 15.5-point home favorite, not covering by the hook, but will claim that 8th seed in the Eastern Conference. Miami enters the postseason winners of 7 of their previous 8, over in 9 of the last 10 games. So here's the Eastern Conference play-in bracket. The Celtics have been the 1 seed and really have positioned themselves atop the conference in the entirety of the NBA for a good majority of this season. The Knicks, now the 2. It's the Bucks and the Pacers in the 3-6 matchup. Cleveland and Orlando in the 4-5. Cleveland a pretty hefty outright favorite. Milwaukee minus 225 to win its series outright against Indiana. I'm not sure I believe it should be that strong of a number. We're not entirely sure when Giannis Antetokounmpo is going to play, if it will be game 1 or game 2 or game 3. But the focus first and foremost, Donnie, goes to the 7-8 matchup in the Eastern Conference play-in tournament. Philadelphia as the 7 seed. Miami as the 8th seed. And the winner of that game will head to Madison Square Garden to take on the New York Knicks. Philly is a favorite in the Eastern Conference play-in tournament matchup that begins on Wednesday. I ask you the question like this. Winner of that game, Philly or Miami, will be the 7th seed in the Eastern Conference playoff bracket. Will they be the series favorites, despite not having home court advantage against the Knicks inside Madison Square Garden?
I don't think so. I don't think so. And again, this could change because if Joel Embiid plays in that play-in game against the Heat and they annihilate the Heat by like 15 or 20 points, that could change perception here as Embiid will be fully healthy. A lot of question marks popped up yesterday in Philadelphia when Joel Embiid did not play in that game. Is he really injured, or the Sixers just doing the right thing, saying, well, he got dinged up a little bit in that previous game against Orlando. Let's be safe here, because whether we win the last game or not, move our seeding up, nothing matters if Embiid is hobbling into the playoffs. That's going to be a key question as it pops up. But that's 7-8 game, because nobody wants to take on the Celtics, Ben. Not a single team wants to be like, you know what, let's lose this game so we can take on the Celtics. Nobody wants that. So this game also feels like a, Eastern Conference Finals, because the winner of this game really believes they probably should be the favorite over the New York Knicks here, and maybe it's not a true number 2 seed. Now, it's not disparaging to the Knicks per se, but it's interesting that the Knicks are able to get that number 2 seed, and then the team's like, you know what, it's either the Celtics or the Knicks. You really want to take on the Knicks. But by the way, real quick on this point, Ben, 132 points by the Boston Celtics without a single starter in the lineup, and Peyton Pritchard drops 38 points. I don't know what's going on in Boston. I don't know how they formulated this bench, but they scored 132 without any starters in the game. That's incredible, man.
And they were only a 7.5-point favorite at home to cap off a season inside TD Garden at 37-4. The Celtics minus 190. Minus 190 to win the Eastern Conference Championship before the playoffs or postseason even begins. But we'll have further conversations about this later on in our second hour, because there is tremendous value elsewhere out east. Some hockey talk to end out the opening hour next.
People that bashed him will be eating their words this year.
Pretty heavily favored to be a first-round pick, minus 400 earlier this week. But that's not the surprise.
If you're drafting J.J. McCarthy in the first half of the first round, you clearly believe not only is he a starter, he's going to be your starter for years to come. But
a popular bet was under 3.5 wide receivers in the first round.
The tape doesn't lie, baby.
Only on SportsGrid.
Victor Hovland right now can probably hit it right where he's looking on the range. But the problem is when you get out to a golf course, especially like Augusta National, it's a big, big picture. You can see every shot in the world, but the targets are really, really small.
I feel like whoever we pick is going to win. Like, I feel like we have the power to choose the winner of this tournament.
I know. I'm surprised more guys haven't reached out.
And they might, and they probably will.
Only on SportsGrid.
89-87, 0.6 seconds remaining. Big drama here in this game. Always frustrating when your Final Four parlay and bracket gets busted, but here we go. I'm done.
Look what he is now. He's on FanDuel, plus 120. Almost even money to win the tournament. So you actually, if you did get him at plus 260, you got a pretty good, better investment than you had before. Just saying.
Sports Rage Late Night. Only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFC selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
The NBA regular season has come to a close, and as we close out this opening hour of a Monday Live on the Early Line on SportsGrid, the NHL regular season has just 4 days left. Today, tomorrow, Wednesday, Thursday, regular season finale on the ice before the Stanley Cup playoffs begin. Highly regarded by many people as the best postseason in all of sports. And still, some to be determined in the National Hockey League, like the final two spots in the Eastern Conference playoff picture. Not necessarily the case out west. Everything has been solidified because of an OT winner yesterday for the reigning Stanley Cup champs. That's the Vegas Golden Knights. They claim the second and final wild card spot in the Western Conference standings.
How about that, man? Coming down the stretch, and you're right, talking about the NBA and how many games were changing over the final, or seed lines, I should say, over the final 2 to 3 games. Western Conference crazy. Eastern Conference also absolutely wild with 3 teams looking for that final wild card, Ben. 87 points apiece. Down the stretch they come. Yeah. Look at it, Ben. It's contagious. Add more teams to the playoffs. It's more fun. You just know it is. You know it is.
I'm not even going to regard that comment because I know what he is alluding to. We also are trying to figure out who takes the third and final playoff spot out of the Metro. That's the Metropolitan Division. Right now, the Islanders, 90 points. They sit there in third. A 21-point gap between the Hurricanes of Carolina and the Islanders of New York. Again, they have a 3-point advantage on the Caps, the Flyers, and then 4 points on the Penguins. Those 3 teams in battle for what is the final wild card spot in the Eastern Conference, but also that third and final spot in the Metro, and the Detroit Red Wings trying to battle as well for that third and final wild card spot. Currently, the Caps in front, but a lot to be determined in these final 4 days of the NHL regular season. All right, that does it for hour number 1 on this Monday. When we return for hour number 2, we go around the weekend on the diamond in Major League Baseball. That starts in less than a minute.